we discussed the purpose of the mitzvah of Birkat HaMazon. And we concluded that Birkat HaMazon is just as much about not forgetting God in the larger sense as it is about thanking God specifically for the food that we just ate. And just as that I write a thank you card to remember what the person did as much as it is just to say thank you. In this video, we will discuss the structure of Birkat HaMazon and the message that comes out of this structure. So let's get into it. So Birkat HaMazon consists of 4 different brachot. And as we know, the idea for Birkat HaMazon comes from the Torah, which most Rishonim understand to mean that the first 3 brachot of Birkat HaMazon are required from the Torah, while the 4th one is only was instituted by Chazal. So what is this structure? So the first bracha of Birkat HaMazon, which we'll call Birkat Hazan, simply consists of thanking God for how He universally provides for food for the entire world. The second bracha, which we'll call Birkat Nodeh, praises God and thanks God for giving us Eretz Yisrael, for giving us the Torah, for taking us out of Mitzrayim. And I want to point out that Birkat Nodeh consists of 2 paragraphs, Nodeh and V'al Hakol. Sometimes they're separate in the benchers, but they're really one unit. The third bracha, Rachem, which we will calling Rachem, consists of requests from God that He should have mercy on the Jewish people, on Yerushalayim, on the place of the Beit HaMikdash, and that God should reinstitute the kingdom of David HaMelech. And again, Rachem consists of 2 sections. We have Rachem and Uvenei. And again, they're separated in the benchers, but they're really one unit. The 4th bracha, which we'll call Birkat HaTov HaMeitiv, talks about how God is the ultimate ruler of all of mankind, how God is involved in the world, and that He provides food for everyone. So the Gemara on Brachot points out that the 4 brachot of Birkat HaMazon were based off 4 historical events. And these historical events match up with the content, or created the content, of the 4 brachot. So for Birkat Hazan, Moshe wrote, or instituted Birkat Hazan when Bnei Yisrael were provided with the man in the desert. And this matches up with the idea of God providing food for the world. The second bracha of Nodeh was instituted by Yehoshua when Bnei Yisrael crossed into Eretz Yisrael. And this lines up with thanking God for Eretz Yisrael as well as for the Torah, which we need to keep in order to remain in Eretz Yisrael. The third bracha of Rachem was instituted by David HaMelech when he conquered Yerushalayim, and by Shlomo HaMelech when he built the Beit HaMikdash. And this lines up with the requests that we make of God to rebuild Yerushalayim to its fullest, which contains the Beit HaMikdash and Malchut Beit David. The 4th bracha, Hatov HaMeitiv, was instituted after the failed rebellion against the Romans. The Romans didn't permit the Jewish people to bury the soldiers who had died defending Beitar. But when they were finally allowed to bury these people, the miracle was that the bodies hadn't decomposed at all. So, and that lines up with the idea that God is involved in the world. As we see, there are 500 years that separate Moshe to David HaMelech and Shlomo, and then there are 1,000 years that separate David HaMelech and Shlomo from the rabbis who instituted the bracha of Hatov HaMeitiv. So when we make Birkat HaMazon, we are basically going on a historical journey from our earliest times of a people, at the beginning in Hazan, where we're in the desert, moving into Eretz Yisrael, and then finally into the Beit HaMikdash, and even after the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, in the bracha of Hatov HaMeitiv. And so just to complete the idea of the first video, we saw that the idea is to remember God even when we feel powerful. So when we are in Eretz Yisrael, we can feel very powerful. We are the ones doing all the work. We are the ones who are plowing the fields. But the idea is not to forget God, even Eretz Yisrael. So it's not just food, but it's also Eretz Yisrael for Yerushalayim. When we eat food, it's not just the present, but it's also the past and hope for the future. So in our next 2 videos, we're going to be discussing halachic issues that come up during Birkat HaMazon. Hope to see you then.